We've been looking for abductions all night.
Who are those two humans?
That's Betty and Barney Rubble.
Dumbass, you're thinking of Betty and Barney Hill.
Already abducted. Does he remind you of Travis Scott?
Dumbass, you're thinking of Travis Walton.
Already abducted. I'm starving. What, are you going to stop for something to eat later? The scanner relays came back. That's Chris and Kristen from Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Which one is Bigfoot? Which one is the bunny?
Dumbass.
Oh my god, you're such a dumbass. Such a dumbass. Such a dumbass. Such a dumbass.
Where is the church?
Perspective on the meaning of Thanksgiving, and we're not talking turkey.
Gobble, 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 gobble.
You know what my shirt says?
Tonight on Bigfoot and the Bunny, how could a place so beautiful, so serene, hold such a dark secret? Meet Toby.
Toby, how old are you?
How old are you?
Wait, my face, how did that happen? Wait, my face, how did that happen? Wait, my face, how did that happen?
Do it again.
We are muted.
Say it again.
Hail Hecate heathens. Welcome to the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. Hope you're all doing good, being good girls and boys out there. I understand it was Krampus knocked this week, and that could have been tough on some of you. It seems like you survived. I guess you've been good this week, Kristen.
Yes.
You've been a good girl.
Yes.
So what's going on? Happy Thursday, guys.
Happy Thursday.
Hope you're all doing good. And what's going on there? Carol Garcia.
Hi, Carol.
Hello, hello. And we can see there's more of you out there than are saying hello. Oh, hey, Bob Burnell. What's going on, buddy?
Hi, Bob.
Well, I guess you were good this week. The Krampus didn't get you. There's Lynn Monet. What's going on?
Hi, Lynn.
You're one of our favorite people, too. Glad you're doing good. Good to see you. What's happening, Wild Bill? What is going on? And yeah, no Krampus here, Carol says. The Krampus night. So, well, I see you've got your Hecklefish shirt on, Kristen.
I do.
And so I guess I was good.
Yes, you were very good. Hecklefish
because you got me one, kind of like it.
Is my spirit animal, it says.
Yes. Lizard People.
The lizard people.
Some of you would probably know what that is.
We're not going to say.
Another good show and on the YouTubes.
Jeez.
Yeah, we got a Hail Krampus, Wild Bill says. Right on. We got a great show for you guys. We got a couple of our friends coming on. And because it's Christmas season, we're running around and children are involved. We didn't actually get together tonight, but we will soon. Let's bring them on. We'll go ladies first. We'll go with Celine Beanie, the Beanie Medium. She goes by Beanie Medium. She's seen lost loves and lost spirits for all of her life, starting with her childhood and growing up in a haunted house. That pretty much blew her mind and expanded her perception of what existed beyond our typical plane of existence for the last couple of years. She's traveled the country, honing her abilities to help her better understand and help others. She's an avid tarot card reader and hosts live readings on TikTok and Facebook Lives, hoping to give people some guidance in her life and to connect them to deceased family members, which is a wonderful cause. She's also an amateur paranormal investigator who likes to use modern tools to establish accuracy and confirmation in her readings. With her is her man, Mr. James Annitto. And James, a lot of you guys, he's no stranger to this show. He's been on a bunch of times, including a Friendsgiving a couple of years ago, right around this time of year.
Had such a good time.
From his house. It was a lot of fun. He's a renowned demonologist and paranormal investigator, has been in the field since 2004. He's held many responsibilities in his time, such as being ordained as a deacon in the old Catholic movement, while also being formally ordained as a minister with another Christian denomination. Currently is a student at SNHU for his psychology degree, hopes to better understand the human mind. He's appeared on various TV shows and certainly he's been out on the paranormal circuit. So I'm going to abbreviate your bio, James, to that because I'm running out of breath. So I'll bring you right on. Well, let's go on, buddy. How you doing?
Well,
hey, how you doing?
Welcome back. And welcome, Celine.
Yes, welcome. This is your first time here.
Yes,
Yeah. With your haunted doll.
She's not one, actually. She's my friend.
Great.
It's a gift.
She's watching this video.
She knows.
Oh, okay.
It's wicked funny. That's okay. She'll be haunted in no time.
Yes. Like you said, it was Krampusnacht last night.
Krampusnacht.
And yes, no children were beaten here with any sticks.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I don't see the children, so we gotta ask the question.
Well,
I don't hear them either. Out of sight, out of mind. I don't know what Ben Franklin used to say. I don't know. Yeah. Something about shutting your kids up. I don't know. My father used to tell me all the time. I should know.
Children should be heard.
Seen and not heard.
And not heard. Yeah.
Something like that, right? Another. Shut up, kid.
The old ways. Now they're all being heard.
Oh yes, yes,
yes.
Social media. Oof.
Lots of people saying hello to you guys.
Hello.
And, welcome.
Yes, welcome.
So I know you're all getting ready for the holidays and all, and this is a busy time of year. What are you guys doing for Yule?
Well,
is Wotan going to fly over your house for the Great Hunt or what?
Yes, it is. But for Yule, we are going to put the log down. But no, just, what's it called?
Don't you guys have a baby doing that?
What's it called? No, we're just having Christmas here, and the festivities of the winter solstice here.
Cool.
We're just having a good time. We have our two little children. Ours Dawson, and then I have mine Caleb, which many people do know of. And it's this household is going to be the place of festivities. For
those kids are rock stars. Everybody knows them.
We're gonna have a lot of kids running around here.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of kids, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time of year with the kids. Yes. I miss that. Ours are older now, and it's it's like, okay, have some money,
Yeah.
Here.
You know,
See ya-
I miss
see you
the
next
days
year.
of staying up all night building the toys and thinking about
Yeah.
how things are going to be laid out when they come out that morning.
Yeah, it was
you know?
my favorite
The
time.
eyes get real big and like, you know, putting everything just so. But yeah, you're in the peak of that, you guys.
Until they ask, is that all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Officially broke. I am officially broke for the Christmas season. Yes. I will be giving tears of not joy, tears of sorrow.
Lots of money spent.
Lynn says, for some reason, I don't see chat. I think that's because most of the chat is on Facebook. Lynn Monet. And have to jump over to that. And we're in a few places on there. Done the Dark Horse, the Bigfoot and the Bunny. And of course, the Paranormal United Network, which we love. Pun and Pun TV.
Yes, we
the
do.
Paralinks. So, yep. Going out to all you guys, which is fantastic. She says she's on Facebook, but you're showing up on YouTube and StreamYard. So go figure. StreamYard is boned. But hey, you guys were just at a show, right, in Salem?
Yeah.
We were going to come out and see you guys, and that looked really cool. It was like a horror show and paranormal convention.
It was a blast.
Yeah. I had a few of the actors, a few of the people that were killed in Friday the 13th Part 2 as some of the, their main attraction for people that are slasher film aficionados. And then, there was other paranormal people there. I one of the speakers at Salem University with Sandal Trusis. We had presented our Monsters of the Paranormal lecture, and Celine was there gallivanting and making friends and passing around her information so she could make contacts. So
That's awesome. We really wanted to come up and see you. And in fact, if I'd known about it a little bit more ahead of time, we may have set up or made an event out of it, because it looked like a lot of fun. We love horror movies. We watch them endlessly, and we watch a lot of the short ones on YouTube. I don't know if you guys do like alter films and different things. There's just like thousands of them, and they try to tie a movie in like somewhere between 6 and 20 minutes. Get a plot line, which is kind of a challenge when you think about it, right? It makes them fun, and if they suck, they're over in no time anyway. So you move on to the next one.
I haven't watched fan fiction movies in a long time. My forte used to be, I used to watch a lot of, because I'm a nerd, but I used to watch a lot of Star Wars fan fictions. But some of those people just are extravagantly well at what they do with editing and effects, and I can imagine some of the horror ones are probably very out there as well.
Yeah. Well, technology's come a long way, and you can make a movie with an iPhone now that's actually pretty good looking. So people get involved, and it's a lot of fun. I think our friend Quincy Roser from Doc Hour Paranormal was hosting that event, right? He was the MC. He's a good dude. He's been on here. We've been on his show. Michael Quincy. He goes
by both names.
It was Charles's event, I believe.
He's the MC, the guy that was bringing people.
Oh yeah, Mike. Oh yeah, he's awesome. He's a great guy. It was the first time I ever met him, and we had such a very very knowledgeable and full of wisdom talk. He's a very smart guy, and
he's great.
I actually haven't followed up with him in a couple of weeks. I should, because I was supposed to be on his show, and we were supposed to, of course, talk a little bit more. But very intellectual, man. Like, it's like with you guys as well. When we get together, we especially when Chris and I talk through text messages, the intellectual conversations that we have. There's a difference between wisdom and knowledge, and you get a little bit of knowledge, but you get a little bit of wisdom at the same time when you speak to fellow intellectuals, because not a lot of people, we're the paranormal field, and generally we would think that something that is necessarily verbatim unknown, there's not a lot of people asking really great questions. They're stuck in a certain pathway of they ask questions to spirits, but they're in this one lane. They don't diverge or branch off from their specific path. And like Mike and like Chris and Kristen, and other people out there similar to us, and even Celine, because she was at 11 o'clock last night asking me very interesting questions that would take like many years to debate. You add to that conversation, you add to those questions, and you kind of dig down to a rabbit hole of a lot more things you can expand upon.
That's how we all learn stuff. I think a lot of people look at paranormal investigators from what they see on some of the shows, and I'm not going to name them, but they just go demons, and we're so different. Like if we're in an investigation, we go Beelzebub.
Oh man, it's awful. Specifically, of all people that know that, like not to toot my own horn here, but being who I am in the sense of a demonologist, and really like putting my my kind of, not my whole kind of lump sum into one bag or one basket, but basically what my approach is that, and I get so many far-fetched stories, or so many out of the wazoo kind of like ideology of why they think that they're dealing with a demon. And you step back and you look at it with critical thinking, and you're like, well, that doesn't like really correlate or relate to any form of a demonic haunting. And I'm like, and then I remember, we're in Western culture, and very superstitious, very Christian, a lot of
Very,
culture. And of course, we think that if we're dealing with something from the outward realms of possibilities, that it's going to be evil, because a lot of Christian teachings, really point towards that if you're speaking to something, or something's meddling in your life, that it is evil and not something positive and joyous. Lost loved one like she experiences, or lost souls, or people that just need to communicate because they want to get a message across. People jump to the worst case scenarios, and that's just human nature in general. We always jump to the worst case scenarios. So it's definitely an understanding to why people jump to the D word, but it is a little far-fetched sometimes when you hear them explain their stories, and then how they somehow calculated to the idea that Beelzebub or Belial or any of these other people, like if I put year 0 on by Ghost right now, you'll hear 10 of the names from
the Goetic
realms.
Yeah.
72.
Yeah, the Goetic is a perfect example.
Sure. No, we don't think everything's demons. Just the stuff that goes on around here.
Hey, ask that question. Stop needing me. Just ask that question.
Not really.
I was gonna ask you.
Oh, you're gonna ask me a question?
That's why I'm poking
I guess
you.
she's interviewing me now, guys. What's the
No,
question?
what I-
That's awesome.
because you're talking about like the spiritual realm and
Yeah.
everything, and like all about like demons. Like everybody will assume like from that type of culture and religion, that they think everything evil, but. And what you think, what do you consider evil? Like how would you know? Like what is, how would you know if a demonic spirit is in your home?
That's a really deep-rooted question, because it's really, you have to look at the dichotomy of good and evil, and you have to understand like what is incarnate evil, or how you can relate it to the human aspect of good and evil, and then relate it into a preternatural sense. But like really, to summarize, and not to take the show all on the topic, because there is hematology and many different theological studies and psychological studies on evil, could span more than the show. But really, evil in the sense of the demonic, really, I think is that oppressive feeling, because I know you always say, you always bark at me, oh, you do have abilities, and everybody else says I have abilities, but I don't quantify that. I don't say, yes, I have abilities, but I do believe everybody does. Where I'm in that line is, I guess, in some form subjective, but I really do feel like that if you're dealing with a demonic entity, it is first merits off-based feeling, because I always used to explain it, and still explain it this way, but it's like a threshold. It's like you're outside and you're feeling unicorns and rainbows. It's beautiful outside, and then you hit the threshold of somebody's homestead, and you walk in, and you're like disgusted. You feel like it in the solar plex. You feel like you're getting punched over and over again. To me, that is one of the, especially for somebody that doesn't necessarily
How about smell?
claim. A smell can be
Clear.
it's a clear ability, but it could also, in the same sense, people smell sulfur or other things. It's also smell. Sometimes smelling is subjective and how you smell something, because your mind processes the way you can analyze and use your senses. So, but I really feel like overall feeling is generally one of the specific topics, or one of the specific ways I lean towards. And then, of course, approach to through investigative techniques such as questions, monitoring the homeowners, the people that are affected, or the home. Like certain questions easily can be, especially if somebody feels like they're being oppressed or in the stages of possession. A general easy question you can generally lay out is, when you leave their house, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you're not being affected anymore? And if they say yes, it's a generally good inclination that is not demonic, because a demonic entity will usually follow its target. And then you could say, well, it could be an attachment, but the problem is with the difference between with the demonic and an attachment is attachment it follows you, but it only lingers as much as you participate in the feedback to that attachment, because you're like, if I take a battery out of this controller right now, then the controller, unless somehow through psychokinetic force works, but it won't work anymore. And once you nullify that attachment, it really won't linger that much, because it's really there to fester and feed off you. With the demonic, if you don't give it attention, it will just keep, it will be so methodic in the sense that it will just keep trying to bring you down, your morale down, and your faith down. So there's a difference on how like the interaction or the characteristics of that kind of haunting is. Like it's hard to diagnose it within a day, or hard to diagnose it within a week. Sometimes it takes multiple visits, multiple interviews, a lot of case study really to determine a demonic entity.
Okay, so
okay, no more questions. This is their show.
So I have to imagine a spirit that could do that sort of thing, that is going by that definition of evil being so oppressive, has to be a pretty powerful spirit, and probably a rare one.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very, very strong. Like I like to say, like there's a spirit in the general sense of a human incarnate in soul form, or whatever leaves our physical body. There's different terminologies and words used for what escapes our physical body, even consciousness. You could even use consciousness. I like that. Tend to use that word. When our consciousness leaves our physical body, humans only have been around. We can debate maybe 250,000 years in the sense of our hominid lifeline. Always debatable, because we're always finding new connections and new lost hominids, or troglodytes. But in the same sense, though, is that as long as we've been around, this kind of idea of this external oppressive, very malignant force has been around in some capacity. So it's very interesting that it's been around for so long. And, through a lot of demonology tomes, and of course opinion through many of the precursors, even King James is a poor example, but let's use King James, or I forget the person that wrote Hammer of the Witches, or precursor of that. Always methodically thought that these things were pre-existent of humans, And the one thing that most demonologists, most homes will agree upon is that they're a non-corporeal force, which were never once physical. So that's the difference between, you know, a human and a demonic. Is a human was once physical, and then the demonic was not. But then, of course, you can equate. Oh well, there's elementals. There's these folklorish Judaic beliefs of trolls and all this other stuff. And
absolutely, the fairies,
the fae. You know, so there's always that integration. It's, you know, but it's hard to dissect because, you know. But the one thing really with fae and elementals, you know, the one thing that the earth or any element, but the one thing that can agreed upon most elementals is they're usually not outwardly malevolent. You know, they are territorial. They can be malevolent, but as well benevolent. While demon is never benevolent in the sense, like, yes, it might appear so at first as its deceptive technique of putting a charade on, but you know, it's because it wants you to think it's something nice. And then once you create that invitation or that form of communication with it, you know, then the tidal wave comes in, the tsunami comes in of a different characteristic and different method to how it's presenting itself. Now it goes from, oh, please talk to me, I'm Mary Sue, then now I'm this, and there's a difference in the way it's, yeah, elementals are curious creatures. It's a very good way to put it. You know, but yeah, it's how they present themselves are different. It just has to be researched. You know, you can't jump to the conclusion something's something without really sifting through all the data. And you know, that's what's important. So many people jump to the conclusion and are so subjective without taking an objective approach. And yeah, it's hard to be objective in the paranormal field because it's you know, a pseudoscience in many forms, but you know, you still can take a critical thinking route to
a lot of the experience is very subjective, right? So it's really hard to get data. That's always we play with and stuff, or kind of simply that. We're hoping that they work with it and show us that, you know, okay, that defies the odds or whatever it is, and how did electricity hit that switch or whatever, light up the LED, you know, that sort of thing. It is no true ghost detector, but it begs the question, like, what do you think causes these hauntings? Like it's something we talk about on the show, right? There's all different things. So it could be thought forms. It could be a person's own energy. It could be something like fairies, right? Or it could be something maybe more malevolent. You know, what is your experience showing you guys?
Yeah, no, I'll let Celine take a question first because I like the ramble. So let's, even if you're right or wrong, or people agree or not agree, what you believe, why do hauntings happen? Like, why do spirits linger? Why does that ideology? Why do we think things beyond life happen?
All right. So throughout my life on working with spirits, some I feel like stick around because they haven't moved on from their past life, or they just feel lost, like they don't even know that they're dead, you know. I also believe they stick around for loved ones that are still here and trying to guide them throughout their life, you know. Another thing is some can be, like you said, thought formed, right?
Thought form, tulpa, egregore, many different words for it. Yeah.
Just as well as like bringing this up, like when a person dies and they have something that they really love, they can get attached to that item as well, and a piece of them can be attached to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that maybe the difference between the thought form and the egregore would be that the egregores are created intentionally, where the thought form hauntings are maybe done accidentally. You know, I've seen that in my own residences, and particularly when I was married, and those arguments and that sort of thing created a feeling in the house. You know, like you could feel it when you walked in, and I think it was all that thought energy, no intention. Where an egregore might be something that somebody tries to create.
Yeah, that's also a big debate because the Philip experiment. Philip was considered a thought form. But that really was their intent to create Philip through a fictional story. And regardless if you believe that data or not that they collected, I feel like they did quintessentially created something. But you can call that an egregore too. To be honest with you, like I do believe spirits exist. I do believe that they are tethered here for some emotional impact, or they don't want to move on because they've been tethered here by family. But I also think that there's a form of, like I said, I like to use the word consciousness because the one thing that I always say jokingly is, we deal with human spirits and we deal with animal spirits, but more so than anything else. And a lot of the animals that we tend to deal with are loved animals, usually extensions of your family or family members or people that had some sort of connectivity to this world or died maliciously, and they still want to get a message across, such as like The Lovely Bones, which is a great movie. But I think that in some form, the humanity, the human people, is the factor to why the spiritual realm chugs along, because we're how do we anchor to a world? It's kind of actually like another good example is a children's movie, Coco.
Yes, thank you. We were thinking the same thing.
The picture disappears, the thought of that person disappears, and they disappear, right? Yeah. So we are the tether, and I would jokingly say, well, a spirit, everything could be a spirit. Then why aren't there dinosaur spirits? Because there was no emotional connection to a dinosaur. There was no, right now in this day and age, through biology and paleontology and all those interests in or even anthropology. Well, it's more paleontology, but of the past, we have come more enamored with the idea of dinosaurs and the Jurassic period and so on and more on from 65 million years ago. But there's not that emotional connection to where we had Tyrannosaurus Rex Joe that was a pet of ours, and we loved him so immensely that he still lingers because we want him to linger, or we had some thought of consciousness that Joe existed. So I think there's an ability of human conception into why spirits do linger or why they are present. The idea of heaven is that you are reborn into a new light. And, I know people say that guardian angels and, people can come from heaven. That's it is correct in a sense, but once you get to heaven, like you can send messages in a form, but like visitations do occur. But, a lot of extremist Christians who verbatimly go by the verse by verse of the Bible, will say that it's not possible. But I think that lingering of that emotion and that tethering of that consciousness to my consciousness or thousands of people's consciousness is what continues that level of haunting. And, we talk about hauntings in a negative sense. A haunting is in a positive sense too, because it's
absolutely.
But, I think that's why it lingers. And that's why like most idolized people, famous people, tend to be experienced in the modern age. Nobody's saying, "Oh, I've seen Socrates or Plato," but in the modern sense, like Elvis and a lot of our modern people, that there's still that form of consciousness around these people and that love for them, and that's why I think in certain places people experience their being, because that love and that connection is still there, while long lost fingers like Hippocrates and Plato and Socrates and Achilles and other very notable figures aren't experienced that I know of. Maybe if I went to Greece, somebody would say yes, but I've never heard of a Plato sighting. So,
The Plato
but
they only happen in caves, James.
But it makes sense in some form. But I think that my biggest perception of hauntings now is thought form. I think that even if we don't go somewhere after our physical body, I think that our love and intention, even knowingly or unknowingly, still creates kind of like a mimic of our lost loved one or a specific person, and then it becomes through enough thought that it becomes its own kind of artificial intelligence and utilizes that past person's persona. And the reason I think that is because I've done a very kind of like Stanford prison experiment study on somebody, where I kind of, in the same way of a Philip experiment, kind of created the ideology of a haunting was occurring, and things then started occurring in a very well contained area that had really nothing in that area, no historical value. The house was built by that person's family. Only one person died in that house. Technically didn't even die in the house. But you could debate a lot of things on that. But I think a lot of people unfortunately want something to be there, and then there's something there. But that's always debatable. I have a lot of viewpoints and theories that I kind of jump on or dissect, and I'm not one track minded. Even though I'm talking about it in a sense, next show I might talk about it differently, because I think it's very important to observe it in different fashions and different viewpoints. Like when she talks about things, I'm not clairvoyant at all. Maybe if I put enough perception to it, enough training to train my third eye, then maybe I could be, but I don't want to. I don't feel like that's a tool that I really necessarily want or be haunted by, because it is a blessing and a curse. But I take a lot of what she says. Sometimes I think she's crazy, and sometimes I agree that she's correct, and I support her values on that. But that's a great thing to be able to agree, but then disagree as well, or disagree and to agree, or agree to disagree. But there's importance in that. Not everybody's going to agree on
you don't fight to the death or something.
Yeah. Well, look how many civilizations. I know you both guys love civilizations and talking about troglodytes and stuff like that. And look at how many faith structures are very, very similar. They all branched from animism and then went flourishing from there. But look at how many faith systems are very similar, if not at least similar in small, minute details, then go in different forms of fashions. But there's always that kind of tree trunk that is the standard or the base of that expansion. But that trunk is usually based off on the same kind of ideology. Even monotheistic to polytheistic beliefs. In polytheistic beliefs, when we, Greek mythology being talked about, one of the largest talked about, paganism, even modern paganism. But even many polytheistic belief systems had a pyramid structure. They had these gods and goddesses, but they had a creator of those gods and goddesses. And then the Titans, somebody created the Titans. It all came from the ideologies of one creation, and then it flourished from there. So it's very interesting how you look at it. But
it's fascinating how, like, with the polytheistic stuff and talking about the Greeks and then the Romans after them, and other systems in that area of the world had very similar gods, and they were almost like interchangeable, right? So like a soldier from one country or area, say Rome or whatever, that was traveling, say east, they would find a church with a similar god and then use that god to pray to their god, because they were essentially the same god or had the same abilities, or were god of the similar things, like if it was thresholds or whatnot.
The four major mythologies that people harp on, Roman, Greek, Egyptian, and Norse mythology are held very extremely similar. Yeah, different names and sometimes different characteristics, but like you said, Chris, a lot of the same of what they did.
Yeah.
With the
And
concepts of
I
what their
guess
creation was.
they could pray away, if they were away from home, they could actually utilize that, which is interesting, right? And also, like, you could look at the witches of medieval times, like the Scottish witches, like Isabel Gowdy or somebody like that we like to talk about, would also practice Christianity, who was, considered a witch in her day and was executed for it. But he talked about the dark one and the devil and sleeping with the devil and doing all this stuff, as well as had a super interesting story, but also was a practicing Christian at the same time. So yeah, it's like they work it in. And another example would be like voodoo, right? And Haiti, where they had to hide their religion, their African religion, in front of the French, and would use the saints, Christian saints, and they were actually the laws of voodoo in their mind, but they would use their pictures because being slaves, the slave owners didn't want that voodoo religion and being practiced, right? So they would hide it and work within, and they'd find similar saints with similar traits, and that would become the law.
Yeah, Voodoo, Hoodoo, Santeria, many of those root work based forms of a craft have Christian roots. You're correct. Voodoo is very Christian oriented in the sense, like you said, saints, Santeria, same thing. But people get lost in translation and think they're doing like the devil's work, like you said. And it's really surprising when people don't look at the clear picture of things. People get lost because they want to get lost.
And so much of that is a Christian point of view. I was watching something on Saint Cyprian before the show. Are you familiar with him? Have you heard of Saint Cyprian before?
What is it?
Saint Cyprian of Antioch.
Like the holy hand grenade
of Antioch. Yeah.
Run.
But he was Saint Cyprian of Antioch, and he was a sorcerer. In fact, he went to Rome via his parents as a child to study sorcery. This is how the legend goes. And learned Juno was learning sorcery from Juno, was Jupiter's wife. Roman god Jupiter's wife is Juno. And that was his thing. And he eventually becomes a saint in Christianity. And I guess that part is something you can fact check. And this is around like 200. I think he was born around 200 AD, something like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good story. Let me finish there a little bit. His wife is Justine, and she's Christian from the get-go, right? And he converts because of her, because he can't work what they called his devil workings. He was trying to get the devil's power, even though it was Roman polytheistic, things he was learning in magic, to be with her. And he was trying to win her over through the devil's work, if you will. And he couldn't. And she would just mark a cross. And he wouldn't work, right? The devils went back to hell or whatever. And eventually he converts to be with her. And they more or less live happily ever after until they get beheaded later. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I cut you off.
Well, I want to add to that. Sorry, honey.
Really?
But it really relates to a lot of like same thing as Constantine, with his conversion as well, from the paganism to the Christianity of the Roman Empire. But yeah.
So my question was for all three of you guys, because I've been doing this for a shorter amount of time, but I've been doing this for a long time at the same time. But how would a entity or a spirit or any type of energy get attached to a land exactly, like that particular property, other than like it being a graveyard or bones or any of that type of stuff? Because
I'm going to throw two things and then pass the torch. First one would be the imprint. All right, the energetic imprint left by the people that lived on the land, right? So like a residual type haunting. The second would be going with the animist point of view or panpsychism, that the land has a consciousness of its own, and that it's doing the haunting.
I agree.
And throw the
torch.
Would it be the Fae?
To you, James.
Oh, yeah. Chris.
Let her get in here.
No, I agree with Chris.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, no, I would agree too, Chris. Like you have the stone tape theory of things gravitating and conscious, the residual energy of that same activity happening over and over again, imprinting into the land. Yeah, I really don't see anything much different than what you said, besides maybe that like something was contained there, or there was an emotion or a war happened and somebody lost their lives and it contained to that specific square footage of land.
It's a scarification of the land. Yes.
Scarification, yeah. And
So drawing out other spirits?
well, it could, yeah, because like it could, like, let's just say that if there, I'm gonna use Fall River as an example because Fall River is a cesspool, and
Lizzie Borden.
You have Lizzie Borden's house, and then you have the cesspool of Fall River, the stab capital of Massachusetts. And so, I think a lot of the introduction of what people experience at Lizzie Borden's is outside interference, or what as well people bring into that location. But yeah, it's like a festering point. I think that the one part and the cesspool can interact and it can meld together and create this constant different kind of haunting that people experience at Lizzie Borden's. So yeah, no, I can't expound upon it anymore without stealing the whole show. So I'll shut up.
One more question. Because I've brought this up to James more than once and he hates when I talk about it, but I would like to ask you and James, but I want to hear from both of you about how a house guardian would become like a house guardian. Like, I don't know much about this stuff, so I like to ask a lot of questions, and he just tells me to shut up sometimes. So
I'll go. Offerings. Give the house guardian something it likes. Make a deal.
Huh.
Yeah. So a little more of the story is, we have a debate. I've lived in this house for 8 years now, and so little minute details would happen. I try not to bring work home with me, like especially in my career. Like, even though sometimes I get a phone call or something like that, I try to separate myself from the thought of my career, or the thought, unless I'm doing a radio show like this, the thought of my sub career. And but I would notice little minute things happening. I sometimes feeling of being watched, or one time during the Christmas season, I used to have this pain with the numbers, the countdown to Christmas. And one day it's up on the fireplace mantle. So, I did have Caleb at that point, but there would be no way for Caleb at 2 years old to climb up to the mantle with, or levitate to the mantle and turn the penguin. And the penguin was facing the different direction. Even my, my son's mom at the time said, like, "Did you do that?" I was like, "No." Then sometimes, like, I place an item down and the item would be in a different location. And like, I'm very forgetful, but usually I have, Celine can tell you this. If I put something down, like, I want it in that spot. I put my keys in the same spot. I put my crap in the same spot all the time. It's like my method to my madness, because I know where it is. So if something moves and like it's originally supposed to be there, like, so certain things would happen to that, but I would never pay it mind, because once again, what we talked about, activation or invitation, I thought if I put my perception of idea into, okay, well, something is here and I pay mind to it, then it will just to say, okay, well, he wants to talk to me, and it will then continue to activate and then progressively either get worse or more communication will be attempted. And to me, yes, it would be cool to figure out what it could be. But I was like, okay, I'm cool. It's not doing anything harmful. It's just playing little tricks here or there. But, being in the paranormal field, I've had a plethora of mediums come in my house. One that really good friend of mine, who I really believed in their abilities extensively, because she helped me on a lot of very serious hauntings and not even knowing stuff. Like, I tested her, of course. I test a lot of the mediums that I've ever worked with. And I would take her to locations in my car, meet me at my house. I'm driving. You don't know where the hell you're going. No case details. and she'd be so spot on, I would say 90% of the time. And she was one of the people that really gravitated towards this ideology of that there's a house guardian in here, which, you know, a house guardian, for a lot of people that don't know, can be created in the sense of people's emotions or well-being or positive, negative emotions. Doesn't necessarily have to be something that once lived here. It could be something that just, that's why a lot of people get house blessings to kind of nix any kind of former connections to that house. You know, and so she's like, you have a house guardian, but that was the only person that said that. So I was like, okay. She's like, if you're positive, it won't mess with you. But if you're negative, and this is where I started to, you know, maybe I put a little too much of it in my mind, but I started understanding a lot of the experiences that I had throughout living here with negative people coming in this house and not wanting to stay long and then leaving. You know, they'd come here to hang out and they were in a negative mindset, and like they would necessarily not say something's pushing them out, but then they would, you know, leave within 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes saying, oh, I don't want to be here. You know, so that increasingly kept happening. But, you know, I tend to be, you know, I have my spurts, and when I have my spurts, I get that emotion that I don't want to be here either. And sometimes that's normal human consciousness, but, you know, I feel like when I'm positive, there's nothing ever going to occur. So I don't talk about it or mess with it because I like our level of understanding. If I don't mess with you, don't mess with me, kind of thing. And I try to do what's necessary to keep a peaceful household, in the sense that I don't want a haunting. I don't want to wake up from night and see the doors open and mayhem happening, because I'm comfortable. Like, would I be scared, be fearful of the situation? No, I would come up in arms and do what it was necessary. But there's no reason to create warfare when there is no need to initiate a battle if the battle is not presented. Like, she has different circumstances with it, because for one, she's clairvoyant. She could probably see or sense that, and maybe
see, feel, and hear him.
And he probably doesn't like that, or it doesn't like that. Let's say it. She says
it's a masculine.
It's masculine energy, but but one thing about Celine is, and I'm not saying this to denote her, she has had, you know, I have as well, but I've been able to throughout time overcome my hurdles. She still faces a lot of trauma of her past, and I feel like that combats with it. Like, it's like this trauma, and sometimes her, you know, she is a negative person in her mindset, and she's a beautiful woman, a great woman. But
yeah, I'm beautiful.
You are beautiful. But sometimes her mindset, I think, triggers the house guardian, and that's why between her abilities and sometimes her mentality, I think,
and my bipolar,
and well, her mood disorder. She's not diagnosed bipolar, but I think it tends to gravitate towards her in a negative sense, which makes sense in my opinion. And I know she doesn't like it, but I said you have to stop giving it the energy that you do give it, because she likes to talk about it. She likes to make topics of it. And I'm like, that's not generally what you would do to nullify a situation.
I haven't talked about him since today.
No, I'm saying, but for a long time you did.
Before, when the first year and a half, I did, because he kept bothering me and he wouldn't leave me the hell alone. And he called me a bitch.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
We had something like that happen to us, and it followed us home, and it was really bad. It was dark energy, but it wasn't a negative spirit like that or anything. But we noticed individually ourselves that if we just forgot about it and got it out of the head, and
that's how we got rid of it. It was an attachment.
Just leave it alone.
Well, we could not shake.
Yeah.
And we had a hard time with that.
We didn't bother with it. It was doing all kinds of things. We wouldn't even bother looking, whatever, hearing, and it left.
Yeah.
It ended up leaving us eventually.
It helped us get used to phenomena, though. I'll give it that. I think what, you know, a lot of people attribute to being evil or bad is any kind of actual real phenomena. If something moves or something knocks on the door and there's nobody there, that kind of thing, it scares the shit out of people.
Yeah, it's like
if you're on an investigation and something really happens,
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh God, fuck, I'm out."
Well,
Although you say I'm out sometimes, but
I'm out, yeah.
it's half joking.
It is.
It really does shock you, and it still gets us. Like, if something happens, I go, "What the Christ," that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean it's evil.
No.
Yeah.
It's just communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like in my, as you said, I graduated my psychology degree in August, and one of the things that you learn in, of course, abnormal psychology and other different classes that really permeate on like why we interpret certain things. One of the psychological analyses of the human mind is, and I talk about this frequently because it makes a lot of sense to what you just said, is that this brush in front of you or a bush, it moves, and most people will jump to the conclusion that it's an animal in the bush and there's something that is going to attack you or something's going to leap out at you. But most of the time, at the end of the day, it's actually the unseeable air or wind that is actually moving that brush. But because it startles us, we jump to that there's going to be an animal that's going to leap out and attack us, like it's like some sort of cougar or cat or something like that. That's really demented, So
that's your primitive brain. It's from way
fight
back.
or flight.
Yeah, the fight or flight response. Exactly. Yeah. I have a quick question for you guys. Do you think that DNA can hold a family spirit bloodline energy? I know you've discussed.
You can answer that. I can't. I'm so sorry.
That's a good.
Yes. Actually, there has been a lot of advancement on epigenetics. Epigenetics is a phenomenal study. Studies that are going on right now, where memories, certain attributes can be passed down continuously through generations. I'm not a big past life regressionist person. I'm not going to go into my opinions about it, so I don't make people mad. But lately we have found out about epigenetics that we hear about the young boy having inclination or visions, or him thinking that he was an airplane pilot in World War II. But we found with epigenetics, memories can be passed down through the bloodline. And that, so if my grandfather served in World War II and experienced something traumatic, that actually technically can be passed down to me. And I can have those memories or those dreams, those visions of that happening to me. So yes, epigenetics proves a lot that things can be passed down genetically.
That's so cool.
Not just characteristics and physicalities, but as well memories, even certain diseases or activation of traits that can be passed down through genetically. It's epigenetics. If people that are watching this don't know what that is, please go do your research on it. It's fantastic research. Yeah, I think I brought it up to you guys, right? Or did we talk?
I think we talked about it.
We talked about it.
I know we read
some
materials on it at one time, and I think we talked about it after you had heard about it as well. And I think it's really fascinating because that means everybody has some sort of trauma, like genetically, because at some point in your bloodline, there was absolutely some kind of crazy friggin' trauma, just coming from
between
like a hunter-gatherer to the wars that we had as civilized people, right?
Cat jumping out of a bush. There it goes.
Yeah, and just imagine how far your bloodline goes. If it goes to BC or early ADs, like that's a long lineage to follow. And DNA in itself, genetics is a fascinating thing.
It really is.
So just think how long that bloodline would go, and how long those characteristics, traits, and those traumas can be passed down.
Jerry says, skip a generation as well. Ask a question. I don't know. Do you know?
It could. Like, so,
they know.
If your family has, and this is more health psychology, which is a fascinating thing that, everybody has a different pain tolerance because of how the mind interprets it. Pain's not a physical reaction. It's actually a mental reaction, a psychological reaction to pain. But same thing, like if your family had a long lineage of cancer, there is a chance that within the node of your genetics that cancer does not activate in your lifetime, but
it does or it doesn't.
It doesn't. But in the next form, like let's say my kid, and I don't have a lineage of cancer in my family, but let's say my kid has that node and it activates, then yeah, it technically could skip a generation, or skip, a specific amount of people. So I think that in the sense, certain traumas can skip as well.
Well, I hope I don't get cancer or Dawson.
Well, there is a lot of therapy and medicine right now that is being, I think EBD is one of the therapies that is being introduced for epigenetics. There's also medicines, and then there's also going to be certain more diagnostics throughout time, because it's more of a recent find within the past couple of years, maybe 10 years max. So like there are medicines that can help cushion those nodes so that certain things don't activate or certain traits digress. So there are things they're working on, like even Elon Musk, Neuralink has some capabilities of course, with the mind capabilities, but they're like Neuralink devices could be made in the future where that it strikens your genetics to more positive nodes than the negative nodes that do linger within your DNA or your genetics.
It'd be great if it gets that far. It's a lot of promises, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to the idea of installing something in one's brain, but yeah, we'll see. I love the idea. I left Anne-Marie, and hey, Anne-Marie Young, how you doing?
Anne.
Hello.
Hello, beautiful.
I left your comment up there because it's a good one and leads to some other things I wanted to talk about that this kind of walks into. She says, after a long rabbit hole, I believe we are our ancestors, our past lives, our DNA memories.
I just said that, yeah, basically.
That's a good point, right? With the epigenetics, maybe trauma, maybe memories are also handed down genetically. And that brings me to reincarnation. And also, you hinted about something a little earlier about belief systems and more or less parts of the spirit, right? So a lot of cultures outside of modern day, say, Christian cultures, believe that the soul of a person is broken up into many bits. Like I think the Egyptians had like 7, all these different things. Native Americans had a different system. All through history, you see this kind of thing in the ancient cultures. Do you think so? Do you think that might be where that reincarnation comes from? That part of it goes back into the pool, if you will. And I would theorize this may be true. I don't know. Nobody will really know till we're there, but maybe it's part of it. It could be a cause for hauntings, that perhaps part of the soul is rejected by the ancestors and stays on those haunted lands because it has nowhere else to go. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I definitely do believe in it to a certain degree, but I want to use it as an example. Like when my son was born, one of my family members have passed a week before Dawson was born. And then when my cousin was born, another family died before she was born. So I don't believe that they went into their bodies, but I do believe to a certain degree that piece, like you said, like pieces of the soul, like maybe go into a new body eventually, like
may have a function. Maybe that's
maybe a new life. New lifeline for them and their family or something like that. I don't really know how to explain it, but
I do not believe in reincarnation in the sense a lot of Hindus and a lot of different cultures do, or totemism-based belief systems do. But I think that if you look at Native Americans, a prime example, they would say that, or Hindus, they would say that you become a lesser soul or a lesser being, like a bird or a rabbit or a monkey, and that's why a lot of those animals were idolized, because there was some form of connection within their cultures. But if you take a scientific and logical approach to it, I'm not saying I'm just saying this in a perspective. I'm not saying this is what my opinion of is, but in reality, before we started popping people in coffins, usually we would pop people in grounds or burial mounds, and we technically would then live on in the means of the earth by our body decomposing and becoming new plant life, new grass. So in reality, that is a form of reincarnation. You're becoming now one part of earth. A plant is living. We know plants talk intelligently, and their vine structures do have a form of communication pattern. Like I always say to vegans, that don't like meat eaters, that you don't criticize the person that's going through a field with a scythe and cutting those poor damn plants down, but in the same retrospect of taking the joke out of the equation, some form of reincarnation has existed, and even in the logical sense, if we become a part of the ground, part of plants, part of the grass, part of dirt, then we still technically are creating new life from there. So,
right. That's a recycling plant, right? It's basically a planet Earth, right? There's a big recycling plant.
Have you seen those coffins where you become a tree?
But that's a perspective. There's multiple different perspectives on reincarnation.
What should happen, I think that part of our problem maybe in today's society is that it doesn't recycle as much, or in the same ways that it did historically. The animals, like I don't really know what happens to leftover parts in the slaughterhouse and that sort of thing.
Well, you realize, actually the fun myth about recycling, it's hilarious. I watched quite a few documentaries on it and done a little bit of research on it. The fun thing is, we recycle, but actually, do you realize that all our recycled product actually go to the dump still and get mixed in with the trash?
Yes.
It's mind blowing. Like, it's just like, oh, let's do good for the earth, but let's do, at the end of the day, let's still put it all together in one meld.
And it's I think the statistic is 9% of everybody's recycling that we put out, and to go to the recycle center, plastics and stuff, is 9%.
The plastics industry is who created it. Plastics is made from oil.
Yeah.
So you can follow that rabbit hole any way you like. But that's where that comes from. And that little symbol you see on the recycling, that triangle thing,
full of shit,
made by the plastics industry. I actually invented it.
Yep.
So it just gives people like confidence to say, okay, we're going to
save the environment. It's the same thing with like electric cars. Like, let's go electric. But you realize what creates electricity,
right?
Fossil fuels. And power plants actually create more disruption to the atmosphere than cars do.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe. Yeah. It's like, it takes something to get it there in the first place, right?
Yep.
Me and James were just literally talking about this, like when we die, we were gonna become trees.
Yeah, she wants to get buried together and the ground, so that and then
I love that.
Yeah.
And acorn or whatever. And
no, it's like one of those caskets, but it's good for the earth, but like
biodegradable casket.
It's out of it,
yeah, and then you get you have stuff growing on you, and you have bugs eating you alive and everything else.
Yeah, and the only thing that I've never been pissed on before, but that at that point when I become a tree, I probably will be pissed on.
Yeah, probably. At least the dogs will.
We'll be doing good for the earth at least.
And you got birds in your branches.
I want the same thing. So
but that's cool. That Shaman Sundays is Brandon Cooper.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew that. We actually had that conversation when he was on the show about the parts of the soul. He's a shaman, and he had some viewpoints about that as well, and having this multi-part soul. And I think that's such an interesting idea, that there might be more functions. It's like we all accept that the ghost in the house is the same exact entity that the person was, and it's like in a fully formed but without a physical body, and there may be more to it. Maybe an aspect to that person, maybe a very angry aspect in the case of a negative haunting, right? It's a thought.
I wanted to ask, I've heard of him because you just brought up your friend and you said he was a shaman.
Yeah.
I actually want to know more about them. Like I've heard of them, but I've never really dig deep.
I'll give a plug. He's got an excellent show called Shaman Sundays. And you can find that on Facebook. We can send you some links, but you can search for it. And it's on Sundays and it's on other days as well. And he's actually got a whole network of shows going, some of which we've been featured on a few times. We like those guys.
Yes.
They're good people.
They
Some
are
good people over there. Ann says we need more plants. I know there was another question here for you, James. I'm going to go back a little ways in the chat. I would pitch this at both of you. Belasima asks, I would like to ask James what his scariest experience was in your career.
I would love to hear that too.
The definition of scary is benign to me. Yeah, I've had startling moments, but nothing that's, the way I'm built is, I like to call myself an idiot because the way I'm built is like, instead of like a dude run, I'm a dude, let's run towards it kind of thing. I think that the more adversity that I face, the more that I feed off of it, and the more I will go towards it. So nothing really has at utmost scared me. I've had awakenings, like my first demonic possession case. For I would say a good chunk of the people that would ever experience it would say it would be out of this world scary, but it actually really kind of cemented. I do actually, Brandon. And I actually my faith was cemented by actually having that experience. So it's really hard to say most scariest experience.
How about shocking then? Like
Shocking?
What shocked you the most? What one?
Well, yeah, of course the demonic cases shocked me, especially the first one.
So
because,
tell me story.
Well, yeah, I've already talked about it enough. I'll talk about one that I really don't ever talk about much, and it was I've only brought it up a few times, but it was an investigation at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Really, really cool place. Basically, we had an event going on. There was quite a few people there, but also quite a few very well-known investigators. Some of the people that I would merit that were part of that, everybody, gets kind of like a pedestal when they're a well-known investigator. But I would give them merit that some of them were actually if they really got their name out there, they would be like on the levels of like Hans Holzer, Harry Price, Charles Dickens, and so on, the lineage of people that actually have created some sort of movements of theories and opinions and ways of using tools. But at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, there were just so many things that occurred that were just shocking. I had one time in a case, sore scratches appear on a leg out of thin air, with the guy out touching it and multiple people witnessing it while we were sitting down interviewing. But in Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, I was walking behind this guy, Sean, and I always remember Sean because he sent me free video games because he worked for Bethesda. So I was walking with Sean, Mr. Keith Bailey was there too. And all of a sudden we start seeing scratches appear on the back of his neck, not even touching it, scratches appearing on his neck. We know about shadow people phenomena or shadow phenomena, but this is the first time I ever seen actually a full, and multiple people actually witnessed this. I wish we had it on camera. So it's a told story and told experience, personal experience.
Moral tradition.
But we multiple people, including myself, witnessed this white light being, this white shadow figure, I like to call it, actually walking around, and caught glimpses of it. That was pretty interesting and shocking. But yeah, I would say that investigation probably was one of the most interesting investigations I've ever done. Public investigations, private investigation, because it was a mixture of all of it, that I've ever done, because there were just so many phenomena happening one after the other. People were getting affected maliciously. So there was that. There were through through audio and video. One of the videos was that we had this object on the table, and it gets thrown off the table with nobody's touching, with no capability of moving it and throwing it off the table. So there were just so many things, one after the other, that made it a shocking experience. But yeah, like I would say, like all my demonic cases were very shocking, but I'm sorry to say nothing really have truly scared me. And I'm not challenging. Please trust me, I'm not. Like, if something scares me one day, great. I think the closest thing that I ever got scared on a case was I did a case in East Providence, Rhode Island, and it was the House That Speaks case that I did, and 9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And the only thing that scared me about that case is when they had an attic space, one of the push doors, but there was no ladder. And I had this guy, Paul Davis, who was also a shaman, 300 pounds. We used to work together with Joe Andrade, who was a fellow demonologist. We called ourselves Night Breed Paranormal. And Paul, with his 300-pound physique, lifted me into the attic space. And this was a very active home, don't get me wrong. But I was in the attic space, and I would say not deathly afraid of spiders anymore. I've come further away from being deathly afraid of spiders, but I was definitely afraid of spiders back then. And all of a sudden, I see these glowing eyes, and I seen something crawling towards me, and I'm like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
I go flying back through the access door of the attic, mind you, probably 9 feet or whatever, 10 feet, and I'm on the ground from the attic door, laying on the floor. They're like, "What's going on? What did you see up there? Is the entity up there?" No, it was a fucking spider. Yeah, that was a serious experience I've ever had on a case.
Did you say it was Nightbreed Paranormal?
Yeah.
My soul left out of the body.
Come on.
I got a concussion. That was a moment.
That's awful, but it's so
Did you
funny.
say it was Nightbreed? Was the name?
Scared the shit out of him too.
James?
What?
Did you say that was Nightbreed Paranormal?
Night Breed Paranormal, yeah.
That was the first team I was on.
Was it really with Joe Andrade?
Familiar.
With Joe Andrade and I think Paul and
Paul Davis, yeah.
Yeah, I was on that team for a little while. That's the first paranormal team I was on.
Really? That's awesome. We have a lineage there.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I've known Joe and Paul for a long time. Yeah, his wife Heather. Yeah.
Yeah. This was like 10 years ago, maybe more. I forget. It's been a while. But yeah, that's funny. That's funny. But, I love the story with the spider.
Yeah.
That's wicked cool.
I knew you were.
Yeah, I used to.
Yeah,
you've probably
I,
seen the shirt
so
I had. I had a
familiar.
Nightbreed shirt.
Oh, do you with Clive?
Yeah, with Clive. Yes. Yeah, Clive Barker. Yeah. Yeah, that was Joe's creation, if I recall. Absolutely. That's funny. That's cool. And we were set up at Ocean State Paracon when it was in the basement of the church. Yeah. Yep. And it split off and we did another team. And what was a cool thing that the next year it was stuff that I had collected on both tables. So I was like, oh, cool. I know that. That's my picture. But yeah, all good people. That was a lot of fun and a long time ago. It's fun. I haven't heard your name in a long time.
Memories, yeah.
Yeah, memories. So that's cool. That's a good story. I think there were some other questions in here for you guys. Let me just scroll back. There's all kinds of chat. I like that you're, kind of run at it guy. I like that too. I think maybe it's a male thing. I don't know. It's not really a challenge to the spirits or whatever. It's more like, all right, you did that. What else can you do? And it's just like instantly want to know, instead of run away from it. Jerry says, I've been on investigations for 5 years and never ran across evil. Spirit is it because I'm a sensitive and to this day still don't. Here's a question. Anthony says, question, how long does it take you to get used to the energy of a place you're investigating?
It's actually a good question for you as an amateur investigator, but somebody with abilities
So it kind of depends. With me, especially feeling spirits, sometimes you could walk like instantly, like for instance, he showed me a picture of a property and I immediately felt so many different things. And there's other times where I could just, step outside and look at the place and I could tell like what's going on. But sometimes you would have to, with abilities, is walk into the building and sometimes you won't even feel anything. So it just kind of depends on what and who is there. It depends on what part of the building or if the whole place is haunted itself. Like one investigation that we've had, I sensed more in the back of the building than I did in the front of the building. So it just kind of depends on the situation of the spirits and how they act and how they come to you, because some just don't want to be known, and then there's some that are like, hey, hi, and don't stop bothering you.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm out in public with people and I'm getting, hey, like keep poking at me. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm eating.
Yeah.
So it depends. I don't really know how to exactly answer that. But it just all depends on the situation, the home, the property, what has occurred there, if people are doing rituals or if somebody passed, or how gruesome was their death, how did they die. It just it all depends on how they would approach, or if they approach at all, because there's some spirits that don't want to be known. There's some spirits that are like, yeah, you need to get the hell out of my house, and they are well known. They will let you know. They'll make you uncomfortable. Like we did an investigation in this mansion. There was one in particular room that
Benford Hall.
I went in. It was a dining room, and it was for the men where they would smoke. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable coming in here. I feel like I'm being disrespectful. I'm gonna remove myself because I'm being told to get the hell out. So I went and I talked to the woman. She goes, yeah, well, that's the men's area. So women didn't really go in there, and we get that a lot from the women when they go in there, and we get that a lot from the men when they go in the women's area. So, like I said, it kind of depends on the spirits and how they approach you, or if they even approach you at all.
That's it.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
I like that. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of spirits that don't say anything.
Yeah.
I think they're all around us. There's so many more dead people than living people, that if people have died. And it would only make sense mathematically that there would be a lot of spirits around.
Yeah.
How about you, James?
No, I think you answered it quite a bit. I've taken it enough.
Great job.
Azriana wanted to know, are you still retired from investigating, James?
I left.
Well, so I keep getting that question. So like, I did take off quite a bit. So I had done, and I've stepped back away from the paranormal quite a few times, because sometimes you got to recharge. You have things going on in your life, and specifically what I do dealing with people more so than the average person in this field. And the capabilities that I do. I'm not tooting my horn, but I'm just saying, like, if I'm not in a good place, I'm not doing them justice. So slowly, I kind of got involved. I was like a few months after her and I broke up. Now you can tell we're back together. But after I got back from Romania and I was in a dark place, I did stay away from investigating. I think 5 months in, I was asked by Ryan Buell to come out to South Carolina to investigate with him in San Baltrusis in Aberdale, South Carolina. It's a very predominant, well-known place when it came to the Confederacy during the Civil War. I can't believe I can't think of the name. I think it's Abbeville, I think. But I was asked to investigate a hotel there was fascinating. And then a few months later, I did another investigation. So I would say yes. So throughout that time, I in some form still have been consulting with people. Or of course, if I consult with them, then I give them to somebody else during that phase. But as of right now, I am full-fledged back into consulting with people. I was supposed to have a few cases physically being involved, but they fell through the departure of communication due to those people. But yeah, no, we just did Ventfort Hall last weekend in Lenox, Massachusetts. We were in San Antonio for an event that we investigated the Black Swan Inn.
It was great.
So yeah, I would say that I'm back into investigating. It's hard. It's hard to disconnect for something that you've been involved in since 14 years old. I'm 33 years old right now. So, and generally, if you know my story, I've been far more involved in the knowledge and the interest of life after death and, theological viewpoints since I could read in my, 8, 9, 10 years old. So, it's hard to separate yourself from a life that you're used to living. But yeah, no, I would say I'm not retired anymore. Back to doing events here or there. I won't have the rigorous schedule that I used to have because, I realized once again I was failing my family by, not to get a little personal, emotional here, but I was failing my family by taking especially Dawson at his young age, and then of course Caleb, who's now just turned 7, taking their youth for granted. If I live a long time, when they're 18 and or much older, of course, because the disparity in age there, then I can jump full-fledged back into it the way I did if I'm still even thought of in the capacity that I am or once was. But no, yeah, I love investigating. Me and Celine are trying to do things together. Eventually, probably kind of do like a duo team together and maybe lecture together or maybe do investigations together more thoroughly and
That's awesome.
Make that a thing.
Eventually, slowly.
Yeah, I want right now in her time and place. Like I want her as much as I have a love-hate relationship with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and some of the far-fetched things they did. I use this as a nuance because people understand it in a sense, in relation. But, I would like her to be my Lorraine someday where she can be the medium that I use, and investigator I can use. But as I told her, we've had personal discussions about this. I say, she has a little bit ways to go before she ever gets to that point because I don't want, in her current mindset and current still lingering traumas, to get involved with me in those kind of cases and I do her damage. That's not something that you wish upon your loved one and somebody care about. So there's things that we both have to work on as individuals, but as well as a team effort. She has to learn quite a bit more things before I even start taking her on some really serious hauntings.
Yeah. Excellent. Good answer. And I love to see you guys talking together. And that's why it's really cool having you on the show together.
Yes.
And talking because we know each other as friends and as a couple and have hung out and just, shoot the shit, kind of thing. And it's always a good time and always fun. Backwoods Paranormal of Alabama asks, what is your favorite spot to investigate?
You've been to a few places now, so what's your favorite?
I have two.
I think I know it, but
my first one will always be Wilson.
Yes, we have a story from Wilson.
My first experience was with them. Our first case together, us first meeting, my first experience was with them. It was just
awesome.
I love Wilson. Wilson, I've had a lot of experiences with Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I've had rosary beads ripped off my arm, and I've just had a lot of experiences being touched and so that would have been my first favorite, not even just because of the paranormal part, but because I like how it looks. I love the like how not ancient, but it's so old, but they also have that it's like it's kind of falling apart, but it's not, where it would be like abandoned. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
go in there and do stuff. But that would be my first, and then my second would be the one in Texas that we just went to this summer.
Oh, the Black Swan?
Yeah, I loved it. I really want to go again. Like I really loved it a lot. Like I've had I didn't have an experience there, but I did sense a lot of spirits around me. I did pick up on a young girl that I actually felt very drawn to. I didn't feel like she was bad. I just felt like it was a memory. You know what I'm saying? Like she was showing me a memory, and she knew that I was there, and I felt like a sadness though at the same time, because what I heard is like I want to be with my mommy, but I don't know if her mommy was not that much around or too busy. I just don't know, but all I could see was her sitting on that little swing and just like being alone, but she was a little sad, like kicking her feet, and she's like, I miss my mom. So like I really liked that place, and I liked the old man that was there too.
Let me ask you a medium question. When you get that information, when you're getting that kind of data, do you get it as like pictures and images, like symbols, or do you get it as like actual words, like in your mind? Like do you hear that, or do you see them like in a movie sort of thing happening?
It kind of depends on the spirit and how they approach me and how they talk to me, because sometimes I can see through my third eye, and sometimes I can hear it, and then I can put the pieces together. So they would tell me bits and pieces, and then I would put it together. But most of the time I see through my third eye, and the little girl was showing me pictures and images, and she was showing me what she looked like. But also, with that being said, it kind of just like depends on also the land itself, on because when we were there, I did hear in my head shooting, and I did see a man get wounded on the property, like farther back in the woods, kind of near the lake. Like I could see him trying to cross over to a lake, but I don't know why, but I was seeing his leg was shot.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, and it's so cool with the medium thing that you get that, and language doesn't really matter, right? So you could be anywhere in the world and get the message that the spirit was trying to convey just through their intentions.
Yeah,
you see it as a story or images, like you mentioned, or hear things, here's gunshot, that kind of stuff, and able to put together the story.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
My favorite spot to investigate for Alabama is well, I would say it has changed. There's been like a contention, like a punch out. Like I fought Mike Tyson, I fought Muhammad Ali, kind of. I'm just kidding, but I would say my favorite, because legitimately every time I've gone there, it hasn't disappointed me at all. I would say USS Salem. Plus, I love Don DeCristofaro. He's
a great guy.
I love him.
One of my best friends. Like you guys are like one of my closest and best friends. We occasionally get dinner together. So USS Salem's just phenomenal, and it's a freaking heavy cruiser. There's nothing cooler than that. And then I would say my second, it always gives me it always gives me goosebumps every time I'm driving up that long stretch. I would have to definitely say Waverly Hills Sanatorium, just because of what its importance was for TB, tuberculosis back in its uproar, but just because how massive the facility is. Of course, in its archaic sense, I don't know how much it's been built up since last time I've been there, but it's a great training ground for paranormal investigators, because There's external aspects of the building because of no windows, because of TB. They don't want to enclose people in. And then there's also the enclosed parts of it. But it's just a great festering ground of a lot of trauma and a lot of death. And then as well, like I said, for you to employ different investigative techniques. But I will say, and I probably won't ever go back there again. Maybe one time in my future. But my most favorite and coolest place to investigate ever would have to be Corvin's Castle in Romania, in Transylvania. Because
I've never been. I can't.
Corvin's Castle was the place they filmed The Nun, and it was the place they filmed a lot of other movies in that castle. But I would say that would probably be one of my coolest favorite places, because just the idea of being in a castle and investigating it privately was pretty darn cool. But I will say that I have an amazing achievement. I'm boasting here, but I have to boast. But I would say my utmost amazing achievement would be the first international American group to investigate Vlad the Impaler's birth home.
That's awesome. Very cool. And I'm still jealous.
Right?
Vlad Dracula's house, and where Vlad himself was born.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Holy shit.
Yeah, man. It was on live. I don't know if it's still on live. It might be on Mysterious Adventures Facebook page it was back in late October, early November of last year. It might still be back there if you circle back, but I freaking performed a seance in there. That in itself was pretty damn cool. To actually be the first person to ever do a seance in that building.
I'm mad at him because he's never let me join one. Ever.
Well, I haven't performed one with you, that's why.
I'm sure you will.
Yes, I'm sure you will at some point as you're growing.
And there's me. There's medium as well. It's medium Sky Ray. What's going on, Amy? She says, happy belated birthday. And hello, my beautiful squirrel.
That's me. That's me. Yes.
Awesome.
Friends are.
He has a squirrel.
I love Sky, aka Amy. She's awesome.
Fellow
army brat. We were both in the army
together.
Yeah.
She was in the armed service.
Yeah. Well, we got like them folks too. They're cool as hell.
Yeah.
Bellasima asks, have you ever come across a possessed person? And if so, how did you handle it?
Well, yes, I have. Early in the show, I talked a little bit of it, and I will have to say, Bellasima is the coolest damn name I've ever heard. That is a damn cool name, Bellasima. That's just what we name our daughter. We're not saying we're pregnant or anything like that. Don't.
Oh, hell
we're
no.
not making an announcement on here.
Hell no.
But have you ever come across the possessed person? So how did you handle it? Well, my first time ever dealing with a possessed individual, I was actually called in by a psychologist. So it was very far-fetched to usually how I approach these cases. Usually I'm contacting the social scientists or the medical doctors involved to help diagnose any possible conditions or disorders. But I was called in by the social scientists. And how I handled it, I would have to not lie to you that it was a jumbled mess, because, like I said, I wasn't scared, but really handling at that point in time, I've only had seen possession or heard about possession from fellow acquaintances, or watched it like most people through the movies or some sort of form of media. And so you have an inkling idea of how it's supposed to go, or how it might occur, or the severities of it through fellow acquaintances that have experienced it. So you're putting all this together, and you're trying to formulate your next move. And like I said, I do good under pressure. I'm a master procrastinator, so I do everything to my best of my ability at the end under fire. That's how I get all A's in schools. I save my assignments to the last minute, and I get an A still. But so you really can't prepare for somebody that's in a transient possession and the demoniac, who is the possessed person, to snap, where they lose their consciousness, and then this demonic entity's consciousness comes into play. So it's really hard to handle your next move. Like, you have plans, and like me, I have plans, but sometimes those plans don't go right. So relatively how I kind of ended that moment, because that case later turned sideways, and a lot of other things and drama happened from that case, where I didn't eventually be able to cut the cord with that demonic entity, but I was able to alleviate it that night. So when this demoniac went through his transient state, which had, eyes going black. Actually, one of the weirdest things that ever happened that I've ever seen in my life, the cheekbones triangulating, they actually pointed out. So the whole skeletal structure of their skull actually elongated at the cheekbone and triangulated. Was able to manhandle 200-300 pound guys that was there. One of them being Paul Davis. In the sense, he was able to dislocate his shoulder and grab my rosaries. I still carry these rosaries around. These rosaries are like if I put them under a lot of water, they probably maybe would deteriorate or oxidize, but usually those kind of rosaries don't oxidize. And where this demoniac actually grabbed the rosaries, left imprints on the beads from where he actually grabbed it and where they broke. But in that moment, you could feel like a difference in that atmosphere when you knew that he was going to go into his fit of his episode and or that transient state, because you could feel like the whole atmosphere, like the barometric pressure drop, the sickness feeling, like I was talking about earlier in the show, came upon me, and many other people that were there as well. And, I was preparing, getting all my tools of the trade out, such as my crucifix, my prayer book, my holy water, my anointing oil. And we had him sit down at the edge of the table. So the head of the table, I was on the other side of the table. And all of a sudden, when I asked him, I believe, if I remember correct, because this is eons ago now, I believe my question was, Jesus loves you. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Jesus loves you. God is here for you. And I then asked the question, I said, do you love Jesus? And then that all of a sudden is when the table went flying at me. He lifted the table from the head of the table. It went flying at me, broke in half. And all my tools of the trade were all spread out on the floor. And all of a sudden, these 200-300 pound guys, one being Paul Davis, actually pinned them up against the wall, and they struggled very deeply. This man was only 23 years old, and struggling very deeply to hold this person down. And I grabbed all my things, and the only funny moment I would say of this is when the table, part of the table was near him. I Captain Morgan that table, so my leg was on the table, and kind of, because I won't lie, like my body, like the fight or flight was kicking in, mentally.
I bet.
Mentally, I'm saying I got this, but my physical body is saying, get the hell out of here, get the hell out of there. So it's trembling. Mentally I'm not trembling.
You don't know
physical body is trembling,
right? Like you don't really know. You don't know.
Yeah.
So my physical body's trembling, so I'm shaking. So the reason I planted my foot on the table like I did, but it would be like if you took a picture of that, it'd be like a funny kind of like meme. But I started doing the deliverance prayer over him because I do know how to perform the rite of exorcism, the 1999 pre-1999 version and post-1999 version. But, I'm not applicable to perform that legally in the sense that I don't agree I am able to do. So I performed a deliverance because I was the deliverance minister for the Church of Christ at that point in time. So I performed what I best knew at that point in time, which was deliverance, which is in a way a much lesser form of exorcism, because the deliverance prayer is actually in the rite of exorcism towards the tail end of it. And so I performed a deliverance, and I was able to end that transient episode where, of course, he did expel some sort of excursion. So he vomited, to say it loosely. He vomited once the deliverance actually had worked. He had vomited and expelled what was inside of him. But after that deliverance, unfortunately, weeks later, it did come back. But I was never involved back in that case. From what I understand, many, many years later, from my understanding, he's doing much better now. He's in a better place. So I would say that was my first dealing with the possessed, and that's how I handled it. I had, like I said, that case really awoke in my faith, because I didn't debate God at that point anymore in my life, because I used to debate God. But I was, of course, I was a Christian minister, so I had a strong faith. But it really, seeing that and seeing the many physical things that happen beyond any normal syndromes, and just the feeling, the presence, like really strengthened my faith tenfold, because then I really knew that evil did exist. So that means God and good does as well exist tenfold. So that's how I handled it. I utilized my faith. I utilized the prayer, and I as well thought throughout this process that if I don't fix this, that a lot of people could get hurt.
Yeah.
And that was all that I could think about, and that's all that I could nurture in my thoughts at that point in time. And thankfully we got through that moment, and I was able to help him for a short period of time. But eventually, like I said, I was discontinued from that case. Many reasons. Let's just say I had a disagreement with the psychologist, and that I guess understood what she saw, but later could not internalize it, like through a psychological lens, that what she actually experienced was demonic. So there was a battle and a strife that happened there. But all I know, and I'm thankful to God and thankful to humankind, that he is in a better place now, many, 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 many years later. And that's all that matters. But it was definitely death-defying. I'm a thrill seeker, but like I tell people, even as a demonologist, and as much as I would like to get more case studies under my belt through my lineage of doing this, when I do not get true cases of demonic possession or oppression or infestation, I'm happy. I could never do another demonic case in my life, and I would be happy internally and emotionally, because there's a lot of transference that happens within that case. But so it was a moment. And after that case, I had probably 3 other cases. I had one, I would say, demonic infestation case before that. Always highly debatable. But 3 other cases after that, and 2 more of those were possession as well.
Can I ask you, I think it's like super interesting that you working through the church in that moment were like your greatest critic in debating God. You said, no, were you debating the existence of God?
Well, I wasn't debating the existence of God when I was a deliverance minister with the Church of Christ. But prior to being ordained and being a pastoral assistant, I did debate the existence of God. I would say when I was growing up, back then it wasn't called neo-Darwinism, it was Darwinism. And I was very interested in biology and the theories of evolution, micro and macro evolution. And I really was, in a sense, more of the biological viewpoint of God didn't create humanity. Genetics and life forms and the development of certain species created ideology. The concept of where we are as a Homo sapien, Homo sapien. Throughout my life studying and researching many different religions, and then having like an epiphany when I was in the military of a moment that happened to me. And at that point, I did a whole complete 180. And from that moment that epiphany happened, the next day after that epiphany, I was super religious. Like I was reading the Bible, believed in God. And that's what led me to being a pastoral assistant with the Church of Christ, then later being ordained, then later converting to Catholicism and becoming a deacon. So yeah, I don't debate God anymore. Like I don't know, and maybe some Christian would say, well, you're not a Christian asking this question. I don't know fundamentally what God is, but I know God exists, and how it's interpreted has been viewed differently throughout many different ages. But I definitely know a higher power exists, and I use the word God for that terminology of higher power. But if I'm very eclectic in the sense that if you have a different viewpoint, great. But really, all I care about at the end of the day is the good for humanity. So if you're doing good with your faith and your religion, that's all that matters to me.
Interesting that you went into a battle of good and evil and had a battle of spiritualism versus science.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to ask.
Yes, I have a quick question. I'm curious of what you think. You said you expelled the demon. We'll say, D word there. And do you think that when you say expel, do they just dissipate, or do you think that they just move on and go somewhere else and just try to possess somebody else?
Well, so I don't necessarily think that, like, when I use the word expel, so what tends to happen during like an exorcism or deliverance, usually you do a house blessing or a minor rite of exorcism on the homestead. So it's basically in ideology. I'll use Star Wars as an example again. When the Jar Jar Binks and the Gungans were against the Trade Federation, they put up a big shield dome, and until the Trade Federation figured out how to get into the shield barrier by walking in. When you do a house blessing, you kind of create this like spiritual force field, a shield, and then so when you do, so you can do it before or after, but if you do it before, you're turning the tables on that entity, because now they're playing on your turf instead of their turf, and so now you have more on your side. So when you take it out of the human, you expel it, it gets pushed out of that force field to an exterior of that property, or if you're gridding the property beyond the gridding lines of that property. I think in a hypothetical sense that the demonic entity, and from what I know, would actually linger for a period of time, like a lion would be as a predator stalking its prey. If a predator sees a prey and the prey gets away, there's a good chance that for a period of time that predator will stalk that prey still to try to get a second or third or fourth attempt. And then if the attempt is mundane at that point, then it will go into its next prey. So I think and what happened a few weeks later, something mentally or emotionally or something within that person's faith demoralized again, and then that force field had crack in it in its containment, and it went back in. And this is what I see with multiple different cases, that you create this foundation for this person, and you give them this feedback, this is what you need to do, blah 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 blah, And when they don't follow it, that's when that crack happens, and then this malignant force comes back into play. So I feel like it's expelled for periods of time. Now, you need to constantly live a different lifestyle if you dealt with something like that. And it's hard to really change your daily routine or your daily thoughts or your mindset. So really, it's really retraining people's mindsets, kind of building them a faith structure that they can abide to without forcing your faith on them. So there's a lot of tooling the people that you need to do for them to regain their ground. But yeah, throughout any time in that process, if they have a misstep, that thing can be intrusive again and invade that person's life. So, in that circumstance, I do believe it was pushed beyond the realms of the property.
It's so interesting. Just now it occurs to me what a great team the two of you make, because I think you're really good at helping the people involved, James. And Celine, I think you may have the ability to help the spirits themselves. And how interesting is that and well balanced, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why I think we'd be a good team.
Lorraine.
Oh yeah, well, I don't want to make that true. There's a lot of things there that I'd rather not fully truly equate to that. But I definitely think that we could be a power couple and help people, help spirits. I think a lot of people are, I don't mind saying this, but I think a lot of people are attempting to or forcibly crossing over spirits. And I think sometimes that's the worst thing you can do, because you're not, if there is a message to be given or something that she can receive as a conduit. Mm-hmm. And, when I do offer the crossing over ritual, it is for them to be willing to cross over at their demeanor, at their warrant of wanting to do so. But if she's there, she's able to help that process, because she's able to give them that voice and spread that message to either their loved one or relations to traumas, and there's a comfortability of that. Hey, yeah, I'm dealing with this too, but we can both get over it together so that you can move on and go wherever they ever go. If it's the evaporation of consciousness, or they do go to a heaven or some other realm, then that happens. But I feel like
they need to go in peace.
I feel like that we could definitely
come out of the stuck situation that they're in. We've only done that once, but we'd like to do more of it. I think it's just an interesting area of study. We had an experience with what identified itself as a child spirit named Toby, ironically enough, and it wasn't a dog or Victoria Monday's cat, who was also named Toby.
Yes,
but it was a child, and we do feel like we were able to help.
Oh my God, yes, so I was right. 10 years old.
Seven.
I heard 10.
Oh, he said 7. It's pretty clear. We went a couple of times and we got the same answers
over and over.
I picked up a child, so.
Yeah, no, that was there. But that's such a cool study, and I know it's getting late, and we got one more question. Maybe we could talk a little bit about those dolls.
Yeah, that's
really cool.
That's awesome.
So for the audience question, George asks, after what you just related to us, have you ever been physically injured?
No, so that's one thing that I can knock wood and thank God that I've never physically been harmed. Beside that close call with that case where he did grab onto me, but grabbed my rosaries and they shattered.
You still have them?
Yeah, they're in my bag right there. But I've never been physically harmed, never been physically affected. Now I have gotten an attachment that definitely mentally wore on me and created physical occurrences in my life, such as like losing my job and losing money and all that stuff. The constant basis of what people say when they're talking about attachments and how things go downhill. But yeah, no physical harm.
Very good. Well, we're glad you're okay. Some of that sounded pretty scary, for sure, and a little bit more
one in the truck
of something actually happening on an investigation.
Smells like crap.
Going a little further than that.
Yeah.
I know you've got some dolls.
Yeah.
We have one right here. Her name is Lucy Lou. I'm just kidding. What's her name?
Oh, I don't.
Oh,
know
it's
her name.
it's.
I'll bring. I can bring the other one if you want.
No, it's all right.
there.
Oh, so yeah, so
That's my friend's
I'll
dog.
hold you talk. People,
So
yeah.
I'll use her as an example. I'm gonna move to get a little bit more comfortable. This ain't the exact doll, but I have a friend. She sells dolls. Not for a living, but it's like a side thing. And this is not one of them, but the other one that I received. She came in the mail. Be careful, she's porcelain glass.
I know. I'm gonna balance her, and hopefully she doesn't break.
James Ronald Annitto.
Okay, tell your story.
So basically, I unboxed her, and with Toby, he's very sensitive to spirits as well. Most dogs are. But I've had a lot of experiences with Toby. He's like my little psychic.
Yeah.
So, I unboxed her. Her name is Ava, I think, yeah. And I put her on the side of the couch. I was doing like an unboxing video. It was all done. I put her there, and I was just explaining. And Toby jumps up on the couch, and he sits right next to her, and he just puts his head right on her lap.
Aw.
Yeah, so it's like I picked up a young girl, and like I got really connected to her, and I immediately meeting her, I really liked her a lot. And maybe in the future I was thinking about maybe buying off of her more. Purchasing.
Does she have a website? Do you want to plug?
It's called Bella's Haunted Dolls.
Bella's Haunted Dolls.
Maybe I can throw it out in the chat.
All right.
And just to give you guys awareness, my biggest pet peeve is, if you've ever heard me, I hate haunted objects, not because I'm scared of them, but like I said, I don't like bringing objects home with me, because it's like bringing work home with me. So like she keeps them in a case downstairs.
It's a wall, actually.
And she of course does her rituals, but I'm not too fancy about having haunted objects in my house. But thankfully, nothing, knock on wood, has happened. But yeah, no, it's very interesting how being kind of a specialist on haunted objects myself. I'm no John Zaffis or anything like that, or Ed Warren, but I was on the Devil's Doll on a haunting, and I did bless Annabelle. But
if you want, you can do a blessing down there. But I'm gonna be doing some other stuff that I'll tell.
I find it interesting that people pick off, like, this doll has a story, came with the paper, her name, when she died.
But it took years, though. That's the thing. She got it from years of doing this work with the doll.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen overnight. That's what people don't understand. And when you get all that information, they put it down.
Yeah, I find dolls creepy, though.
Leave her alone.
Oh, sorry.
Did she intentionally haunt the doll with the little girl's spirit?
It belonged to her.
Oh, okay.
So this is the thing. I didn't know exactly how haunted or if it was legit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we have investigated most of them. Vivian, she has.
Yes, Vivian. I've had her before we've gotten back together, but I didn't know she was haunted. She was from an antique shop.
Yeah.
And so I went with a friend, and it was downstairs in the round table, and I was like, oh my God, I love her. It was like an instant, like, oh my God. I picked her up. I'm like, I am not doing this today. I am broke. I need to put her back down. I know she's $25, but I don't care. I can't do this. I come back 2 weeks later, and she's still there. So I'm like, I have the money. You're coming home with me.
So like synchronicity.
I think it's fully possible.
That's how everything started. But with Vivian, I don't like to bring her up. I don't like to bring her that much. I brought her to one event, but I don't think I'm going to bring her that much because she doesn't really like people, especially men. She hates James, hates him. And I'm like, you know what? I tell her, I'm like, you need to, I will put him in his place, but you need to do your part too, or I'll put you on timeout. There's no misbehavior in my home. And
She wants respect.
oh, she will, because she'll be in the doghouse just like he is.
Yes.
If he goes in doghouse, so will she. You know, like I make everything clear with all my spirits. And another thing is, you guys haven't seen the downstairs yet, but eventually, when you guys come back over, I will show you it. But it's not going to look like that forever. I plan on making it a room, but I plan on painting the whole wall. But I plan on putting herbs, like salt and all that type of stuff, like very positive things, along with holy oil. So I'll have a mixture of earth, and I'll have a mixture of, other stuff within the paint to paint on the walls, so they cannot, like, a lot of, like, even negative spirits can't go in, and negative spirits wouldn't be able to come out.
Yeah,
so they have to stay in that area.
Yeah,
And,
most definitely the protection. And if they do get out of hand, a lot of people that we know put them in their own little box or their
exactly. Yes. And I will build it myself. I don't care. I won't have to pay nobody, because I'll do it myself. I have him.
I think you're better off doing it yourself.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, because you put your intention into it. Yeah.
A lot of people will haunt objects. Like, it's not as crazy sounding as it may sound to some of the people in the audience.
Yeah, some people do. I have another friend that does that too.
They have different names for it, spirit traps and
not in the doll, but you know what I mean.
No, it's okay. Those are just different things and skill sets that people work at, like me from an occult point of view, to bring some sort of consciousness into some sort of physical object like a doll. And per things like animism and panpsychism, I think it's totally possible, and it does happen. So you may have
probably be able to do a pet rock.
Yeah, you can.
Haunt a pet
and
rock.
talk to that rock, right?
Hell yeah.
I won't get into that story though from this week. That was kind of interesting, but maybe next show. I know it's getting later for you guys, and it is for us too, and we got to work tomorrow and everything. But this has been a great talk. And where can people find you next? So if they want to look for you besides TikTok and your website, jamesannitto.com. Do you have any events coming up that you want to talk about?
Actually, I probably do. I'm not on social media anymore. Never gonna happen probably again, unless she creates like a page for our group when we have one.
You can always contact me.
Yeah, her TikTok's on the bottom. Follow her on TikTok. She has 11,000 followers.
And then my Facebook is Beanie Medium. So
yeah, just how it is right here. Whatever. Yeah, right there. Go to my website that has my email, my information. I give my phone number out because I'm a nut. 401-808-7416. If you're in dire need, please reach out. Who you're gonna call? Not the Ghostbusters, but probably James Annitto. But yeah, no, I do have. I think I have an event in April, July. So I don't know what
October too.
October. Oh yeah, July. The big one in July is we're doing. Celine and I are going. I'm one of the special guests. We're doing a camp out event at the Hinsdale House in Hinsdale, New York.
It'll be our anniversary too.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
July 9th. Yeah. Right? Is it the 9th?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, keep us in the loop with that.
Yes, please do.
We might want to go out with you.
Yeah. You should take the drive with us. Yeah, you should.
Yes.
I know. I'll get Mike Hatcher's information, but yeah, we could probably get like a individual tents or a big ass like family tent, and we can have fun. We have
a tent. We have camping gear.
Yep.
We were camping in last year.
We'll be there
with Mr. Brandon. So yeah, we're down for that.
Let's do it.
Great, man.
That'd be wonderful to do.
I'll sit with Kristen.
All right, guys. Sounds like a great time, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate
Always a pleasure. We love talking to you guys.
And then maybe next week or whatever before we can grab dinner. Well, I'll hit you up.
Fine. It's fine.
Sounds good.
We'll get there.
All right.
Sounds good. Same for Amy and Jerry out there too.
Yes.
We could all get together. That'd be a lot of fun. Those guys are a great time as well. All right, guys. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I'd like to thank everybody in the audience, and you guys are great tonight. Lots of great questions and information. Wicked good show. Wicked good show.
Wicked good.
As we say here in Wood Island.
Wicked good.
We love you guys. It was a lot of
you.
fun. We'll see you next week.
All right. Peace out.